everyone. I wanted to go over some handouts that I usually give my students when they first come to my class. It's a little bit of background information and some tips and tricks to kind of help them start to get the most out of their yoga practice. This is especially helpful for beginners so that they can kind of start off on the right foot and really know what it is that they should be expecting from their yoga practice. So the first handout that I give people is my little welcome to yoga class handout, and this just gives an overview of what it is that we're going to be doing. It states that it's important to bring your mat to practice on, and that you can bring a towel or maybe a yoga block if you want, if you feel like you need some props to help you to make the poses accessible and to make the poses comfortable most of all. One of the things that I've seen recently that people really like is if they have knee pain in lunging positions or if we're ever kneeling or putting pressure on the knees, to bring a little kneeling pad like gardeners use, and you can pick them up at any garden center. Sometimes they'll have them at the dollar store in the spring, just a little inch-thick foam pad, so that every time you go into a lunge position, just slide it underneath the knee and it's going to make it a little bit more comfortable for you. The other thing along that note is that you can modify poses. You don't have to do your pose exactly the way that I'm demonstrating the pose in the front of the class or the way that the person next to you is doing their pose. Your pose is going to be unique and individual to you, so if what I'm doing isn't working for you or it's not comfortable, then make some little adjustments, tweak it and make it comfortable, make it so that it's not going to be painful or harmful for you, because that's the last thing that we want from our yoga practice. The next thing in this handout is letting your teacher know if you're under the doctor's care for anything. So if you have had back surgery or knee surgery, if you have cataracts or glaucoma, anything like that, if there's some sort of special restriction that you have, if there's any movements that you shouldn't do, maybe you're pregnant so you shouldn't be putting any pressure on the belly, the teacher is going to modify the class to kind of keep that in mind, and they might give you some little extra pointers along the way to make sure that you're being safe in your practice. The next part of this handout is just stating that to get the most out of yoga, you want to practice on a regular basis. So ideally, we would practice every day, but the way that things go, that's not always possible. I know I try to strive for a daily yoga practice, but there's certain days where it just doesn't happen. When you're a beginner, I tell people that 3 days a week seems to be the magic number. If you can practice 3 days a week, it brings you to a point where you really start to see progress in your practice, which is nice, especially when you're a beginner. You see that this is going to be taking you somewhere. Once you get more involved in your yoga practice, daily is really ideal, and you're really going to feel the changes in your body. And what happens is you get to the point where you don't like going through your day without your practice, because you just don't feel as good. You don't feel the same. Maybe little aches and pains start to come in. You feel your back gets a little sore, a little tight. So you're going to come to really find that your yoga practice is a great thing to do every day to really make you feel your best. The next thing is trying to attend class regularly. So a home practice is really good if you're practicing maybe in the morning when you get up to kind of stretch yourself out, to warm up, get the kinks out after you sleep. But when you go to a class, you're getting individual attention from the teacher. You can ask them questions. You can have them demonstrate things if you have a question about a pose, if you're doing it right, if you're feeling it in the right area, if your breath is correct, that sort of thing. They're going to give you physical corrections on your posture, and that's a really great way to feel that you're doing the pose correctly. I know for me, when I was a beginner and I started doing down dog, I didn't really get what I was going for until somebody adjusted my hips, and it was kind of like a little light bulb went off. Oh, okay, I'm supposed to be rolling my pelvis forward and getting that extension through my lower back and my hips. So those things are really going to help you to advance your practice and to make sure that you're doing the poses properly and safely most of all. And you can't really replace that with a video. I know a lot of people start out practicing yoga with videos, but you eventually do want to find yourself a live teacher that works for you. Somebody whose practice you like, that their teaching style kind of speaks to you. The things that they explain and the way that they show you things is easy for you to understand, to incorporate into your practice. It's really important. Now, the next thing is that you want to leave your worldly cares outside the door when you come in to practice yoga. Once you walk through that door, you need to shed all of the planning and maybe the grocery list that you have going on in your head, or thinking about what you're going to make for dinner when you go home. All of that gets left outside so that when you come into your practice, it's really a break from the rest of your day, the rest of the hustle and bustle that you go through every day. This is a time to relax and to focus inward and to give your mind something present to focus on. Much of our day is spent thinking about what we will do later or what we have done, and what happens is you kind of get that sense of time moving so very quickly, and that's because we never stop and focus on right now, on exactly what's going on in this very moment. And that's what our yoga practice is about. It's focusing on the breath and using the breath that we have right now to focus on the present moment. So try not to let all the other things distract you. And that's a hard thing when you first start practicing yoga. It's hard to stop that mental chatter and to focus on what's going on at that moment. But it takes a bit of practice, and it's completely worth it once you do, because you will feel the benefits of being relaxed and having more internal peace when you can control that. Next part is my big thing that I always like to convey to my yoga students is leave your phone in the car, or turn it on silent, or just turn it off completely. If you have your phone sitting next to your mat and it either starts vibrating or starts ringing, it's very distracting to everybody else in the room, to your teacher, and most of all to yourself. I mean, you're kind of ruining your yoga practice by taking yourself out of what's going in your body. Your breath, all that sort of stuff is going to stop as soon as you see that phone ringing, and it's going to take your mind other places. So you want to try and avoid that at all costs. Leave the phone in the car. If there's anything that is that important that you cannot be away from it for a little while, then maybe you should be practicing at home, or maybe you should skip your practice for that particular time, because it's not really productive to be that distracted by your phone while you're trying to do yoga. Next thing is try to hold on to that feeling of relaxation. When you finish your practice and you come out of Shavasana and you have that almost euphoric feeling of completing your yoga practice, your body feels good, you're relaxed, you're loose, you don't have tension in the muscles, and the mind is calm and clear. You've taken away that chatter and you can focus. As you go about the rest of your day, make sure that you don't go out the door from yoga and start rushing around and running around and going back to the way that you were before you came to class. Try to keep that feeling with you of peace, of calm, and approach what you have to do for the rest of your day in that fashion. Make sure that you don't look at things as being an emergency or a rush all the time, because that's what gets our nervous system into that heightened state, that panic state. We're really trying to counteract that with our yoga practice. And then this also mentions that you want to try and practice on an empty stomach. This is more comfortable, it's also safer, but keep in mind, like if you're diabetic, you don't want your blood sugar to drop. If you have low blood pressure, that can also be an issue. If you don't have any food in you at all, you want to be really careful with that. I usually eat something small a little while before class, maybe about a half hour before. I'll have a little snack, a piece of fruit or something that's going to hold me over, but it's not going to be heavy or weigh me down during my practice. And then on top of that, make sure that you hydrate. Make sure that you're drinking before, during, and after your practice so that you're hydrated. That's really important. The next handout is actually titled Yoga Basics, How to Get the Most Out of Your Class. So the first thing that I have on there is keeping in mind that yoga is actually meditation in motion. It is meant to be a practice in meditation, but we happen to be doing these different postures with our body so that we can build awareness of our body, so that we can keep it healthy, keep it flexible, so that we can feel the breath and experience the breath. As the position of the body changes, the breath feels a little different in each of the postures. So our yoga practice is really a meditation in movement. Next is keeping an eye on your safety, and we do that by keeping body awareness. Now, if you think about the scenario that I said before, if you have your phone next to your mat and you're glancing down and thinking, oh, who sent me a message, that sort of thing, your mind is focused on that phone and not focused on what sensations are in your body. So maybe we're going into a deep hamstring opener and you're sinking down into that pose, but your mind is focused on your phone. That lack of body awareness is going to put you at risk to pull your hamstring. Maybe you weren't aware of your pose, that you were going a little bit too far, and you end up pulling your hamstring. So that would be like the worst case scenario, that you end up with an injury because you're not being mindful of your body. But we want to use our practice as a way to increase our awareness of how our body moves, what sensations we get, what does a light stretch feel like, what does a really deep stretch feel like, where do we feel strengthening in different poses, things like that. What muscles do we need to engage to help support the lower back, to release the hips. Maybe we have a tendency to grip in the hips, and how can we release that gripping, that sort of thing. So those are the things that we really get in touch with as we deepen our practice. And when we lose that, again, we put ourselves at risk for injury and just really not getting the most benefit out of our practice. The next thing is to cultivate an internal focus, and a lot of teachers do this during the first portion of class. We start with a centering. You can do this in different positions, but generally teachers do it along the lines of closing your eyes, focusing your attention on your breath, working on cultivating a three-part breath. So the inhale and the exhale are very deep, so that you feel the belly, the rib cage, and the chest move on your inhale and exhale. On your inhale, they're all opening and expanding. On your exhale, they're pulling in towards center to help assist with the exhale. And then as you make a full exhale, you make room for a full inhale. So that internal focus is what's really important. And again, not letting your grocery list start to creep into your mind, not letting what you're cooking for dinner later start to distract you. So while you're doing your practice, you want to keep focused on your body awareness for safety, what sensations you're having, being aware of how your day has influenced the way that your body feels. If you had a really stressful day, do you have these giant knots in your shoulders? Or maybe you had a really good day, but you have an ache in your back or something like that. And you might find that it was from your posture during the day. Bringing awareness to things like that is really going to help translate your practice off of your mat as well, where you can start to see how your day affects the way that your body feels.